At exactly 23:47, the city's heartbeat stopped. Traffic lights blinked once and died. Hospital monitors flatlined not from death, but from digital silence. Bank servers crashed in cascading failure. The metropolitan area of 2.3 million people was thrust into technological darkness in mere seconds. But in a cramped computer repair shop on Elm Street, 22-year-old Marcus Chun remained perfectly calm. His fingers never stopped dancing across multiple keyboards. His eyes never left the wall of monitors that somehow still blazed with activity while the rest of the world went dark. He had been waiting for this moment for 3 years. The mask of ordinary Marcus had perfected the art of invisibility. Every morning at 9 a.m., he unlocked the glass door of Chen's computer repair, a modest storefront squeezed between a failing pizza joint and a nail salon. The faded sign outside promised fast, affordable PC repairs in both English and Mandarin, catering to the diverse neighborhood that most people drove through without stopping. His customers saw exactly what he wanted them to see. A quiet young man who spoke in technical mumbles, charged reasonable prices, and somehow made their ancient laptops run like new. Mrs. Henderson from the flower shop brought her computer every few months, always commenting on how thin and pale he looked. "You need to eat more, dear," she'd say, not knowing that Marcus maintained his lean 140-pound frame through rigorous physical training that most people never witnessed. The repair shop's interior told a carefully constructed story. The front area looked exactly like what customers expected: cluttered workbenches covered in old motherboards, towers of dusty computers awaiting repair, and walls lined with boxes of spare parts. A small TV in the corner played local news at low volume. Marcus had positioned a simple desk near the window where he could work while keeping an eye on foot traffic outside. But the real work happened in the back room. Behind a door marked "Private Employees Only," Marcus had constructed what any cybersecurity expert would recognize as a Tier 1 command center. 6 ultra-high-definition monitors displayed scrolling data streams that would make NASA jealous. Custom-built servers hummed quietly in temperature-controlled cases. Multiple internet connections provided redundancy through different providers, ensuring he never lost connectivity. The equipment represented nearly $200,000 worth of cutting-edge technology, paid for through contracts that didn't officially exist with agencies that operated in the shadows. Marcus wasn't just a computer repair technician, he was Agent Omega-7, one of 12 cyber warfare specialists tasked with protecting America's most critical digital infrastructure. 3 years of preparation. The assignment had begun during Marcus's final year at MIT, where he'd been studying dual degrees in computer science and international relations. His professors knew him as a brilliant but quiet student who preferred coding to socializing. What they didn't know was that certain government recruiters had been watching his work since his sophomore year, when he'd published a paper on quantum encryption that caught the attention of people whose names never appeared on university faculty lists. The recruitment process had been subtle. A professor had suggested he attend a cybersecurity conference in Washington. At that conference, he'd been invited to a private presentation on emerging threats to national infrastructure. During that presentation, he'd met Dr. Sarah Voss, who introduced herself as a consultant for various government agencies. "We need people who can think like our enemies," Dr. Voss had explained during their first real conversation, held in a nondescript coffee shop near Capitol Hill. "The next war won't be fought with tanks and missiles. It will be fought with code and data, and most people won't even know it's happening until it's too late." Marcus had been intrigued by the challenge, but the real hook came when Dr. Voss explained the scope of the threat. Foreign adversaries weren't just trying to steal secrets. They were positioning themselves to cripple American society itself. Power grids, water treatment facilities, hospital networks, financial systems, everything that modern life depended on was connected to the internet and therefore vulnerable to attack. "We have traditional cyber defense," Dr. Voss continued. "Firewalls, monitoring systems, response teams. But our enemies are evolving faster than our bureaucracy can adapt. We need operators who can work independently, who can respond to threats in real time without waiting for approval from committees." The training had taken 18 months. Marcus learned not just advanced hacking techniques and defensive programming, but also tradecraft, how to maintain cover identities, how to operate surveillance equipment, how to communicate through encrypted channels. He trained in facilities that didn't appear on any government organizational chart, working alongside other young specialists who'd been recruited from top universities and tech companies. The most challenging part hadn't been learning the technical skills, but mastering the psychological discipline required to maintain his cover. For 3 years, Marcus had lived as two completely different people. During the day, he was the mild-mannered repair technician who struggled to explain technical concepts to frustrated customers. At night, he was a digital ghost who penetrated foreign intelligence networks and neutralized cyber threats before they could materialize. The duality required constant vigilance. Every interaction had to be carefully managed to maintain the illusion of ordinariness. When customers brought him infected computers, he had to resist the urge to explain the sophisticated malware he could identify at a glance. When local news reported on cybersecurity breaches, he had to bite his tongue instead of describing the real scope of ongoing attacks that never made headlines.
Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thumbs up, you can help more people hear this story by liking this video. Bell, every week we share unforgettable stories of silent heroes.
The network beneath the surface Marcus's cover as a neighborhood computer repair specialist provided perfect camouflage for his real mission. The steady stream of customers brought him into contact with computers and devices from throughout the metropolitan area. Each repair job gave him legitimate access to systems that might otherwise require warrants or hacking attempts to penetrate. What his customers didn't realize was that Marcus had developed custom diagnostic software that did far more than check for viruses or hardware problems. His tools created detailed maps of local network infrastructure, identifying vulnerable systems and potential entry points that foreign adversaries might target. Every computer that passed through his shop became a monitoring node in an invisible early warning system. The intelligence he gathered flowed through encrypted channels to a coordination center where analysts pieced together the larger picture of ongoing cyber threats. Marcus was just one node in a network of 12 specialists positioned in major metropolitan areas across the country, each maintaining similar cover identities while conducting similar intelligence gathering operations. But Marcus's location had proven particularly valuable. The city sat at the intersection of major fiber optic cables that carried internet traffic between the east and west coasts. 3 major hospitals, 2 universities, a regional airport, and the headquarters of 2 Fortune 500 companies all relied on digital infrastructure that passed through switching centers within 20 miles of his repair shop. Dr. Voss had explained the strategic importance during one of their monthly encrypted video calls. "You're not just protecting your local area," she'd said. "You're protecting a critical node in the national information grid. If that infrastructure goes down, the ripple effects would be felt nationwide." That responsibility weighed heavily on Marcus, especially during the long night shifts when he monitored incoming threats. Foreign intelligence services probed American networks constantly, testing defenses and mapping vulnerabilities. Most attacks were automated malware programs designed to find and exploit weaknesses without human intervention. But Marcus had learned to recognize the signatures of more sophisticated operations, the careful probing that indicated human intelligence officers were preparing for something bigger. Signs of escalation in the weeks leading up to that night in November, Marcus had detected an alarming increase in reconnaissance activity. Foreign operatives weren't just mapping American networks. They were positioning attack tools within critical systems. The activity patterns suggested coordination between multiple hostile intelligence services, something that typically only occurred during major international crises. Marcus had reported his observations through proper channels, but bureaucratic response times weren't designed for cyber warfare. His encrypted reports disappeared into classification systems where analysts would eventually read them, evaluate them, and perhaps take action weeks or months later. Meanwhile, the attack preparation continued to accelerate. The most concerning development had been the appearance of sophisticated malware in systems that should have been air-gapped, completely isolated from internet connectivity. Someone was physically placing attack tools inside critical infrastructure, suggesting a level of preparation that went far beyond opportunistic cybercrime. This was preparation for cyber war. Marcus had begun working longer hours, often staying in his shop until dawn as he tracked the growing threat. His legitimate repair business provided perfect cover for the extended schedule. Customers assumed he was simply a dedicated technician who worked hard to keep prices low. They had no idea that while they slept, Marcus was fighting a shadow war to protect the digital infrastructure their lives depended on. The breaking point came on November 15th, when Marcus detected attack code being deployed to electrical grid control systems across 3 states. The malware was designed to remain dormant until activated by remote command, at which point it would cause cascading failures throughout the power grid. Similar code appeared in water treatment plants, telecommunications networks, and emergency services dispatching systems. Marcus realized he was witnessing the final preparations for a coordinated attack designed to cripple American infrastructure. The scope was unprecedented, far larger than anything in his training scenarios. This wasn't just cybercrime or espionage. This was preparation for an act of war. The night everything changed, November 18th, began like any other day. Marcus opened his shop at 9 a.m. and spent the morning working on routine repairs. Mrs. Henderson stopped by to pick up her laptop, commenting again on how tired he looked. A college student brought in a desktop computer infected with malware that Marcus cleaned while explaining basic security precautions the young man would probably ignore. But as evening approached, Marcus's monitoring systems began detecting unusual activity. The attack malware he'd been tracking for weeks was suddenly activating across multiple systems simultaneously. Someone had given the order to proceed with what Marcus recognized as the largest cyber attack in American history at 11:30 p.m. Marcus locked the front door of his shop and activated the security protocols that transformed his back room into a full combat operations center. Additional monitors emerged from hidden panels. Secure communication systems connected him directly to national command authorities. Multiple internet connections provided massive bandwidth for the digital battle he knew was about to begin. Marcus shed his mild-mannered technician persona like an actor removing a costume. The quiet young man who charged $50 to remove viruses from elderly customers' computers became Agent Omega 7, a cyber warfare specialist with authorization to take any action necessary to protect American national security. The enemy attack began at exactly 23:47. Digital warfare. The first wave hit the electrical grid. Power plants across the eastern United States received malicious commands that caused them to shut down protective systems and begin overloading generators. Transmission substations started opening circuit breakers randomly, creating cascading failures that spread outward like ripples in a digital pond. Marcus watched the attack unfold across his monitors as his fingers flew over multiple keyboards. He'd prepared for this moment for 3 years, developing countermeasures and response protocols that existed nowhere in official government cybersecurity playbooks. While bureaucrats debated proper procedures, Marcus had spent countless nights building tools to fight a war that most people didn't even know was possible. The attack was sophisticated beyond anything he'd previously encountered. Instead of the typical brute force approach favored by cybercriminals, this assault demonstrated the careful planning and unlimited resources of a nation-state adversary. Multiple attack vectors proceeded simultaneously, creating so many crisis points that traditional cyber defense teams would be overwhelmed within minutes. But Marcus wasn't trying to defend everything. That was impossible. Instead, he focused on identifying the attack's command and control systems and disrupting them at their source. Every malware program needed to communicate with its controllers to receive targeting updates and report success. By mapping and attacking those communication channels, Marcus could blind the attackers and prevent them from coordinating their assault. The work required intense concentration as Marcus traced attack traffic through multiple proxy servers and anonymization networks. The enemy had spent months preparing for this operation, creating layers of digital camouflage designed to hide their activities from exactly the kind of analysis Marcus was conducting. But they hadn't anticipated facing a defender with his unique combination of skills and resources. As the power grid failure spread, Marcus identified the first command server, a compromised computer in Romania that was coordinating attacks on electrical substations. Within minutes, he'd penetrated the server's defenses and deployed malware of his own, a sophisticated program that would feed false information back to the attackers while documenting their methods and targets. But defeating one command server only revealed the scope of the larger operation. Marcus discovered that the attack involved dozens of command centers spread across multiple countries, each controlling different aspects of the assault on American infrastructure. Shutting down the entire operation would require speed and precision that pushed Marcus to the limits of his capabilities. The counterattack as hospital emergency power systems began failing across the city, Marcus realized he couldn't fight defensively. The attack was too large and too well coordinated for traditional cyber defense measures. He needed to take the war to the enemy. Drawing on techniques that existed in no official manual, Marcus began launching counterattacks against the infrastructure supporting the assault on America. If foreign adversaries wanted to play cyber war, he would show them that the United States had weapons they hadn't anticipated. Marcus's counterattack targeted the attacker's own critical infrastructure. Power grids in 3 foreign countries began experiencing mysterious technical difficulties as Marcus turned their own malware against them. Financial networks supporting state-sponsored hacking groups found their accounts mysteriously emptied as funds were redirected to humanitarian organizations. Communication systems used by foreign intelligence services began broadcasting their operational plans to American intelligence agencies. The scope of Marcus's response escalated as he realized the full magnitude of what he was facing. This wasn't just an attack on American infrastructure. It was preparation for conventional military action. The cyber assault was designed to blind and paralyze American defensive capabilities in advance of physical attacks on military installations and government facilities. Marcus made a decision that exceeded his official authority but aligned with his core mission. He began systematically dismantling the cyber warfare capabilities of every nation involved in the attack. Military communication networks, intelligence databases, financial systems supporting defense industries. Marcus targeted them all with malware programs he developed during long nights in his seemingly modest repair shop. The digital battle raged for 4 hours. Marcus fought against teams of enemy hackers who had spent years preparing for this operation, matching their coordination with superior individual skill and more advanced technological tools. His fingers never stopped moving across keyboards as he wrote attack code in real time, adapting his methods to overcome each new defensive measure the enemy deployed. Dawn and recognition by 4 a.m., Marcus had achieved something unprecedented in the short history of cyber warfare. He'd single-handedly defeated a coordinated nation-state attack on American infrastructure. Power grids were coming back online as his countermeasures neutralized attack malware. Hospital systems resumed normal operation as Marcus cleared their networks of hostile code. Financial markets prepared to open normally as trading systems were restored to full functionality. But Marcus's most significant achievement wasn't defensive. It was the intelligence treasure trove he'd captured during the counterattack. By penetrating enemy command systems, he documented their entire operational structure, identified their human operatives, and captured communications that revealed the political decision-making behind the assault. The intelligence would allow American agencies to roll up foreign spy networks and prevent similar attacks for years to come. As dawn broke over the city, Marcus began the careful process of covering his tracks. The counterattack had necessarily involved actions that went far beyond his official authorization, including offensive operations against foreign infrastructure that could be considered acts of war if discovered. His role needed to remain invisible to prevent diplomatic complications and protect the broader network of specialists he was part of. The front door of Chen's computer repair opened at 9 a.m. as always. Marcus resumed his role as the quiet technician who charged reasonable prices and avoided eye contact with customers. The wall-mounted TV played news reports about the technical difficulties that had affected infrastructure nationwide during the night. Reporters described the problems as random equipment failures and praised the rapid response of utility companies in restoring service. No one mentioned cyber war. No one described foreign attacks or American counter-operations. The shadow conflict that had raged for hours remained invisible to the public, exactly as both sides preferred. The price of secrets. Over the following days, Marcus watched news coverage of the infrastructure incidents with grim satisfaction. Reporters struggled to explain the coordinated nature of the failures, with most settling on theories about aging equipment and insufficient maintenance funding. Government officials made vague statements about looking into the situation without acknowledging the true nature of what had occurred. Marcus's actions that night had prevented a catastrophe that could have killed thousands of people and paralyzed American society for weeks or months. But the nature of his work meant that recognition would never come. Success in cyber warfare was measured by attacks that never happened and disasters that were quietly prevented. The psychological toll of such invisible service weighed heavily on Marcus during the weeks that followed. He continued his cover life as a neighborhood computer repair specialist, listening to customers complain about slow internet speeds while knowing he'd recently prevented the collapse of the entire telecommunications infrastructure. He fixed virus-infected computers while mentally reviewing the sophisticated malware he'd neutralized during battles that would never appear in any history book. Dr. Voss contacted him through encrypted channels 3 days after the attack. "Your after-action report has been read at the highest levels," she said during their video call. "What you accomplished that night, it's unprecedented. But you understand that recognition has to remain classified." Marcus understood. His reward for saving American infrastructure was the knowledge that he'd done his job correctly, and the quiet satisfaction that came from protecting people who would never know they'd been in danger. The next phase, 2 weeks after the attack, Marcus received new orders. The intelligence he'd gathered during his counterattack had revealed the existence of additional cyber warfare programs targeting American interests. His unique combination of technical skills and operational success made him too valuable to remain in his current assignment. "We're expanding the program," Dr. Voss explained during another encrypted call. "What you proved that night, that a single specialist with the right tools and training can defeat large coordinated attacks. It's changed how we think about cyber defense." Marcus learned that he would be training the next generation of cyber warfare specialists, passing on both the technical methods he'd developed and the psychological discipline required to maintain deep cover identities. His repair shop would remain operational as a training facility where new recruits could learn to balance their cover lives with their real missions. The prospect excited Marcus more than he'd expected. For 3 years, he'd worked alone, carrying the weight of protecting critical infrastructure without anyone to share the burden. Training others would create a network of specialists who could support each other while maintaining the individual flexibility that had proven so effective. But the expansion also meant increased risk. More operators meant more opportunities for exposure, and Marcus had learned that their foreign adversaries were constantly adapting their methods. The success he'd achieved that November night had surely been analyzed by enemy intelligence services, who would be developing countermeasures for future operations. Legacy of the Silent Guardia. 6 months after the night that changed everything, Marcus's repair shop had become the informal headquarters for a new type of cyber warfare program. To outside observers, it remained exactly what it appeared to be, a modest computer repair business in a transitional neighborhood. But behind the ordinary facade, Marcus was quietly revolutionizing how America defended itself in cyberspace. His students learned more than technical skills. They learned how to disappear into ordinary life while maintaining extraordinary capabilities. They practiced the psychological discipline required to let others take credit for their successes and to accept invisibility as the price of effectiveness. They studied the balance between individual initiative and broader strategic coordination that made independent operations possible without creating chaos. Marcus had proven that the future of cyber warfare wouldn't be fought by large bureaucratic organizations with slow decision-making processes. It would be fought by individuals with deep technical skills, complete operational freedom, and the psychological strength to operate without recognition or support. His model was being quietly replicated in cities across America and allied nations. The repair shop's customer base gradually evolved as well. While Marcus continued to serve walk-in customers with legitimate technical problems, an increasing number of his clients were specialists like himself, using the cover of routine computer repairs to exchange intelligence and coordinate defensive operations. The shop became a node in an informal network that existed parallel to official government cybersecurity agencies. Mrs. Henderson still brought her computer in for regular maintenance, still commented on how thin Marcus looked, and still had no idea that the quiet young man who charged reasonable prices was one of America's most effective cyber warfare specialists. Marcus preferred it that way. His greatest strength remained his invisibility, the fact that adversaries who had studied the November attack still didn't know who had defeated them. The eternal vigil. As Marcus entered his 4th year maintaining the repair shop cover, he'd come to understand that his real enemy wasn't any particular foreign intelligence service or cyber warfare program. His enemy was complacency, the tendency for society to assume that complex systems would simply continue working without constant protection. Every day brought new threats as adversaries developed more sophisticated attack methods and targeted increasingly critical infrastructure. The success Marcus had achieved that November night had prevented one catastrophic attack, but dozens of others were being planned by groups who learned from each failure and adapted their methods accordingly. Marcus's role had evolved from reactive defense to active intelligence gathering and preemptive strikes. He spent his days identifying emerging threats and neutralizing them before they could mature into active attacks. His nights were devoted to training new specialists and coordinating with other nodes in the growing network of independent cyber warfare operators. The work remained invisible to the public, who continued to assume that their digital infrastructure was protected by traditional government agencies using conventional methods. Marcus understood that this invisibility was essential. If the public realized how precarious their digital security actually was, or how much they depended on the actions of individuals operating outside normal oversight, social trust in technological systems might collapse entirely. The price of excellence: years of operating at the intersection of multiple identities had taught Marcus that excellence in cyber warfare required sacrifices that most people couldn't understand. He'd given up normal relationships to maintain operational security. He'd accepted anonymity as the price of effectiveness. He'd learned to find satisfaction in preventing disasters that no one would ever know had been possible. The repair shop remained his anchor to ordinary life, a place where he could interact with regular people facing mundane problems. Mrs. Henderson's computer troubles, students' malware infections, and small business owners' network issues provided a counterbalance to the high-stakes digital warfare that consumed most of his attention. But Marcus knew that his double life was sustainable only as long as he maintained perfect discipline. One mistake, one moment of relaxed vigilance, could expose not just his own identity but the entire network of specialists he'd helped create. The responsibility was immense, and the margin for error was zero. As he prepared for another night of monitoring cyber threats and training new operatives, Marcus reflected on the path that had brought him from MIT computer science student to one of America's most critical national security assets. The journey had required him to become someone he'd never imagined being: a warrior who fought battles that couldn't be acknowledged, who achieved victories that couldn't be celebrated, who accepted isolation as the price of protecting others. The city outside his shop window hummed with digital activity as millions of people went about their lives, trusting that the infrastructure supporting modern civilization would continue functioning. They had no idea that their security depended on individuals like Marcus, who'd chosen to disappear into ordinary life while fighting extraordinary battles. At exactly 11:47 p.m., 12 hours after the time when everything had changed 3 years earlier, Marcus locked the front door of his repair shop and walked to the back room where his real work waited. The monitors came alive with data streams from around the world as Marcus resumed his eternal vigil, protecting a society that would never know his name and the digital shadows where cyber warfare was fought and won. Marcus Chun remained what he'd always been: the silent guardian whose greatest victory was ensuring that tomorrow would be as ordinary as today had appeared to be. The story of the quiet computer repair technician who saved American infrastructure would never be told in newspapers or history books. But in the invisible realm where codes and data determined the fate of nations, Marcus had written his legacy one line at a time, one threat at a time, one peaceful night at a time. And he was ready to do it again.